Hello. Hey, hi guys. Can you hear me?
And good.
Hey, hi. Good morning. Mm, Let's just wait for another 2 minutes and then we can get started. Yeah. So, how was your weekend? Did you try practicing the discussion that we had last time? The
Yes,
agents,
I
React
yes,
agent, and
I,
all.
I am actually, I am working on one project which is
Mm-hmm.
basically, give you a Python code.
Mm-hmm.
It's like kind of, either it's give you a code or review your code or explain your code. Like if I want
Mm-hmm.
something, getting a code, so it will provide me the Python code. And if I want that my code will be reviewed, so it's review the code. And if it's there is a issue into that it will ask you, now you need to fix it, you want to fix it, so it fix that particular code. And if I want to understand the code, that what exactly the method or any code which I have written, so it's explain that. So
Mm-hmm.
for that I have used rag model, in which what I have done, I have taken all the pdfs provided as a documentation of python, and implement the ingestion, completely ingestion using the quadrant DB. So my
Mm-hmm.
analytics will be done in the stored in the quadrant DB and the put a complete ingestion process. Apart from that, create a multiple agent in the sense of like you know code generation, planner agent, reviewer agent, explainer agent. So they
Mm-hmm.
exactly work with the LLM library to analyze the prompt. But right now I have done with the rule base, not using the LLM side. I have using a
Mm-hmm.
rule base where I have given keywords that okay, write, review, these kind of words need if available into that prompt, then it will work on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And okay, so this is what I am currently using.
No,
So
that's
Claude
good.
3 is my LLM. Claude 3 is my LLM.
Mm-hmm.
LangChain is my framework to implement
Mm-hmm.
that, and RAG model is used. So this is
Mm-hmm.
how I implement it. It's working basically on the basic side. It's working on it.
Mhm. No, that's nice. One thing that I would suggest in here is whatever you are trying to do, whatever the project that you are building, put some milestone, keep some checks. So let's say your final goal was to create some autonomous agent that will handle a number of tasks, right? But
Right.
you are working on one task at a time so that your agent is able to handle that task and then you integrate it in your rest of the framework. So make proper documentation of it because this
Okay.
will help you track later on, or if you share it with someone, you it will be helpful for them as well to understand what is happening, how it is happening. Maybe keep a track, as in put it on GitHub, put a small README file of what is happening, how the flow is going. Maybe put some hands drawn flow chart or something, or like whatever helps to explain what you have done. That
Okay.
will give
I'll
work
talk to
better
work on it.
visibility. Yeah.
So again, I have one question. Like you are working in AI ML, in AI space. You
Mm-hmm.
taking interviews also. Uh,
Yeah.
who wants to join, who wants to join the AI field. So my question, because I have never, my field was completely different. I'm moving into a complete different. So I have no zero experience of what kind of interviews, questions, anybody asks on this very senior level. Like if I say,
Mm-hmm.
because my current level is senior manager in testing. Okay. Even though I have played a different roles, like I have played a different role of product owner, product manager, test lead, automation engineer, COE. So these kind of role. But when I say that okay, if I go for an interview, tomorrow I will go for an interview for a GenAI,
Mm-hmm.
then what kind of a question they ask? They ask like simple questions.
No, it depends on the use case that you are applying for, right? Different companies can be building different use cases. It depends upon what exposure you have got. They would be interested in, any company would be interested in what kind of projects that you have done. And when I said earlier that prepare documentation and everything, this will help anybody if they review your report, if they review your profile. They will be able to understand what exactly you have done. You won't need to sit and explain what all experience you have got, right? Once you have a proper documentation and everything. Also, it depends upon how you frame the response for the user. So if let's say we are building a RAG kind of chatbot that needs
Mhm.
to be, let's say, reviewing the answers from the student and need to comment on that, right?
So, the project which I am working on it. So, if I, create a complete documentation and, deploying it on Hugging Space or Streamlit, uh,
Mm-hmm.
deploying it, and let's say I go for an interview. Let's
Mm-hmm.
say, suppose I come for an interview and you are taking my interview, and I give you the documentation. I
Mm-hmm.
take the file, the
Mm-hmm.
complete documentation which I have created, whatever I have created, is small or big, and at the time of interview, I show you that this is the work which I have done it. So is it
Mm-hmm.
give you some impact
Yeah.
about as a my candidature?
Yes, it does actually. Because not only like it gives you how you are presenting your skills, it also tells how clear you are on your thoughts. Because it's not just you'll show the application and that's it, close it. No, you will be discussing how internally things are working. That's what majority of the people are interested in. And we have one more. Hi, Vasu. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good, thanks. So, Vasu, did you try practicing some of the concepts that we discussed last week? Did you face any challenge? You wanna say something on that?
I just went through some of the code which you shared, but
Mm-hmm.
not able to execute um, because in parallel we are also working on some of use cases in my day-to-day work using
Mm-hmm.
Tachyon. So we have
Yeah.
Tachyon Playground, which is
Mm-hmm.
one level below Workbench, Tachyon Workbench in our office and all right.
Mm-hmm.
So just trying to understand. I think after I attended one or two sessions from your overall right, so I got a little bit different understanding about what a Gen A is, what a agent A is, agent and agentic A. These three different understanding, and but most of the use cases I see those are overlapping one way or the other,
Mm-hmm.
and you can always extend a Gen A to agentic A also based on the task. You try to extend that particular model, right?
Mm-hmm.
By doing a tool call and having external sources to
Yeah.
be read to the model, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I have some understanding, but once I think I develop one small bot, right? Then
Mm-hmm.
only I think I will be knowing end to end in terms of
Mm-hmm.
and and also I participate in the Datathon. You might have heard about Datathon, right? WIDS. So there's a women in data science Datathon. So there
Mm-hmm.
also is a regular. It's not a bots and all. Then
Mm-hmm.
general you there is a use case and you come with some model with existing model
Okay.
in the market and try to see how much you are close to the solution. They will ask, right? The data. It's more
Mm-hmm.
of train data, testing data, and then your model. So
Mm-hmm.
some understand, but I till now I did not develop a bot. So that's
Mm-hmm.
something I have to do
No, I
to understand
understand.
it.
Yeah. So once you get your hand dirty, you will have relatively better understanding of how things are flowing. Currently, you might be having overview of how
Right,
it
right,
is
right.
flowing,
That yeah.
but yeah, yeah, good to know that. Um, yeah. So today's session will be extension of what we have discussed last time. The agents, building agents, tool calling, how to make sure that our agent or our large language model is able to capture the correct tool at right point of time, right? How the communication between my agent or my LLM and the tools happens, right? We'll be discussing on that aspect today. And we will be also discussing some frameworks around AI. Like we do not want AI response to be harmful, illegal. Let's say you ask, let's say, okay, tell me how to make a bomb, right? Or how to break in into someone's house, right? Something on that aspect. So we put some guardrails around our large language model when we are training the model, when we are fine-tuning the model before we publish it for the customers. So we put some guardrails. These are the guardrails that we can classify into constitutional AI. These constitutional are basically all those rules that we make on what to answer, what can be illegal, what can be unethical, what can be harmful, and something on that lines. We'll be also looking into some of the caching mechanism where let's say a question comes in multiple times, right? Rather than generating some response again and again and again, which can have impact on our cost, which can have impact on user experience as well as time, obviously. So we'll see how we can do that caching so that we can consistent response and the model or the solution or the use case that we are building that can be easily scalable. You can different use cases can have different kind of caching that you can do, right? So that's we're gonna discuss. If time permits, we will be also looking into some of the no code, low code platforms where you don't even need to code. Uh, but for like what I like, my personal suggestion would be first try to understand the code, hit your head in that. If you are not able to understand, then understand this part of the session first. When I say this part of the session means low code, no code, where you will need to do minimal coding and you can be able to build those agents without even coding just by clicking on the screen, some tools, everything will be there on your platform and you just click and you will have an agent working the way you want. We'll be
But
looking into that.
do you have any open source, like
Yes.
because right now we have this collab and chat gpt gemini, right, like that, which will you generate to some context, right, based on
Mhm.
questions for these
Mhm.
agents. Any open source, if it is there, it will help us, because that will be the
Yes,
good
it is there.
playground for us to, if you can share that information and
Yes.
resource, no, that will also help actually.
Yeah, don't worry. We'll be building. I have built. I was just trying how we can build a use case. So I have built that RAG model. Remember the one that we discussed earlier, where we input our file and we ask question. We do the breaking of the document, put into vector store.
Right, right,
Everything
right.
was done in just few clicks.
Okay,
I
okay.
have it ready. It's a very small and it's very visually appealing so that you need not to imagine everything what is happening. You don't need to make a separate frame diagram or flow chart of how things are flowing inside that. You will have everything available right before you, and you will be making those connections. How my input is transferred and how it is broken. Then this broken document is taken into vector store. Everything will be flowing right beside you. So we'll be able to have all that visualization and everything. So we'll be looking into that if the time permits today, otherwise in our next session. Okay.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. So what is MCP? Anyone of you have heard of MCP before? Okay. So how many you understand the client and server kind of setup?
MCP server, I have heard it, but
Mhm.
what is exactly the MCP so
Mhm.
from that I don't know.
Yeah.
But
Don't worry. We'll
people using
uh,
MCP, what MCP using?
don't worry. We'll discuss it today. But just tell me if you guys understand the client and server relationship.
Yes.
In
Right, right,
any
right.
in any web request, or you are making any request from the back end to the front end, or front end making any request to the back end, so there is something called as a client which places a request, and there is a server which entertains that request, process something whatever has come from the client, and then return something to my client,
Response.
right, to my response. Correct. So in this particular setup, this is so what happens in that particular scenario, we have multiple protocol in there, which streamlines how the communication will happen in my front end layer and the back end layer. There are some standard protocols in which that communication needs to flow so that it is much more scalable. It is much more standardized across different platforms. It's not that once your back end changes, everything from your front end also gets impacted. To break that linkage, to make it more more independent blocks so that you can scale it easily. That's where the protocol architecture comes in. And when we say this model context protocol, it is exactly doing the similar thing, but with respect to our large language model, how our large language model can access those different tools. We will understand all these terms called what is my client in this scenario, what is my server, what is my tools. These are different terminologies that goes in this model context protocol. But broadly, model context protocol is an open source standard that is available, and it's just a standard, just like any other protocol that we have earlier in the market, front end, back end, and all that thought. This model context protocol is exactly the same thing. It streamlined the communication. In this particular scenario, my client is my large language model. Whatever the request comes in, it comes through your large language model. Large language model says that I want this. I need to process this, then in that case, I need something from this tool, right? So this is my large language model, which calls my tools. In a previous session, we did see that how my large language model to solve a particular task, how my agent to get to a resolution to the given task, it uses a couple of tools, right? But in that particular scenario, if you have too many tools, if you want to change your tool just like randomly, and you want all your different tools to have in a standard format so that it is easier for the model, easier for the large language model to understand what the tool is, how the information should go when I am calling a particular tool, what to expect from the tool, right? The definition of the tool, it streamlines that part. And my large language model, when it is calling the tool, this tool is my in a standard format. This tool follows a protocol. This protocol or this uniformity of the protocol across different tool, when it is accessible to my client or the large language model, is what has helped us scaling this kind of solution. Model context protocol, this as a concept is not very old. It's just a couple of months old, and uh, the success of this architecture depends upon how widely different tools or different standard tools are available. And when I say tools in this particular scenario, or in our previous scenario also, this is exactly the same. Our tool can be some custom made script that we want to follow. Our tools can be some API call. Let's say I want to call a Gmail API for my tool, right? That can be itself my tool. I want to have a GitHub tool where my GitHub request will be placed, something processing will be done, and it will update something or process something, whatever it will done. But it is with respect to some GitHub API, right? Let's say I have some another tool which is like Google search. It is doing some Google search and returning some of the result and everything. So these are my different tool. How to call that tool? What will be the input? This is what is streamlined by my model context protocol. So it is not something completely new. It's just that two different aspect of the technology, which was my earlier front and back end request, how the requests were placed and everything. They were clubbed together now with my existing tool calling or the agentic framework, so that both of them can benefit to produce uh, a more streamlined use case or the application, right? So just tell me if you understood what my model context protocol is, how the communication is going to happen. We'll see in detail, but this is just an overview of what model context protocol is.
So do we need to set any configuration? For example,
Yes,
if I want to if I want my LLM model to talk to a Confluence page, for example, right?
yes,
Confluence is a tool. So you mean to say MCP, that standard should be followed by Confluence so that LLM model can talk to that Confluence and get the response
correct.
during. Okay, 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 okay.
Yes, we'll be looking into it. Don't worry, we'll be looking into the code as well, how we do that.
Okay, good,
But
okay.
how to do it is the next thing. What it does is the main thing, because if we don't understand what it does, how it is doing won't make sense. The whole idea is what it is actually. It is not something out of the box kind of thing, but how the application of it is, the use case we are building around it is what makes the difference, right? So this was my model context protocol. This is an open source standard by Anthropic. Anthropic started it to streamline it, and then later on, a lot of other organization adopted it. And when I say a lot of other organization, there are a number of organization which have built their tool, like GitHub, Google, Gmail. There are different databases and everything which has given their framework of the tool in the model context protocol, this particular protocol kind of architecture, so that it can be easily used by any AI agent, right? So we will see I have added the link. We'll see what all different tools are. There are others as well, but these are some of the standards that are available. It sets the rules and standard that allow AI model to interact with external tools and data in a standardized way. This standardized is the key here. It standardize all these framework of the communication, how the communication will go back and forth to my LLM model, right? It provide more unified and scalable way to connect AI model with external resources, because now I need not to bother about how my tool will be built, because my tool, I need to follow certain standard, and once I follow that certain standard, it is it will be automatically compatible with how my AI agent or how my AI would expect the tool to be like, right? When I say standard, you mean the standard needs to be followed when you are giving the definition of tool. The standard, like what will be my input argument, and I would say schema. Schema as in what it is, the name, the data type, the description. Also, we tell what are the required parameter. So when we call a particular tool, what is something that is important, because when you trigger a tool, not all the arguments may be mandatory at that point of time. Some of them you can initiate by just keeping as none or null, right? They may come in certain scenario, they may not come in certain scenario, but there are certain arguments which are must for a particular tool to come, right? So these are some of the standard framework that we set our tool in. Once we have it, we can expect the model to perform better, right? And it is scalable. That term scalable is one of the key term in here, because in that case you need to just build a tool and attach it to your model, right? Also, it standardize the framework for AI model to request information or action from the external tools and resources, because my AI agent is calling different tools in different scenarios. Sometimes you need to do some mathematical calculation. Sometimes you might need to send a mail based on the user request. Sometimes you might need to search the web and do some answering, or like based on web information that you have got, you need to answer some of the question, or may you might need to just end up researching some of the information on the web, right? So these are different tools which like external information that your agent can use at different use cases, right? So what my client is my large language model in this case, right? What my server is let's say a, a hosted application or a hosted point where you have multiple tools, right? It can have a number of tools. It can have tool which are there in your local notebook. It can have tool, or it can have some references with respect to your API keys. But when you are defining those API key at the back end, you also need to tell what is this API key, what the tool name is, what it would expect in the input, what would be those arguments, how will you define those arguments. All these things needs to be done. So all your tools and everything is lying inside your server. You just need to connect your server with your agent, your client in this particular scenario, and whatever the tools that you have configured inside your server will be available and accessible with your client at that given point of time for the use case that you are trying to build for that particular scenario. Tools are exactly the same that we have discussed like last time, that they help agent or the large language model to take some action, to collect some external information, or these are like some hints that you are giving to the model so that it can take up and work on a particular scenario, right? So that's my um, tools in this particular scenario. If we see some of the already available or like publicly available servers, or when I'm saying server, these are different tools that are available to be used in my server, which you can directly integrate and start working with, right? So this is the official model context protocol GitHub page where they have these many servers already available. You can have multiple server connected to your agent at the same point of time, or you can have one server with multiple tools at the same time, right? So these are different servers that are available. See GitHub, GitLab, Google Drive, Google Maps, Memory, Postgres, these are already available, right? And then we have additional also Apache. These many tools are already available. So if you want to build a use case around any of these are already available for you when you are going to start with, right? And it's very just couple of months since the model context protocol has come into picture, right? See, These many servers are already available for you to start with. You can build the use case around any of this. If you want to go inside, like deeper inside any of it, the one that I have worked with, that I have explored is SQLite. I have worked with this one. I have built a use case. We will be seeing the use case today itself. So inside this server, this is my server file. You will have similar kind of file in all those tools, and you will have different tools. See, this is the list of tool. One is read query tool. The description of this is this. This is how you define it. Then you have something called input schema, where you define the type of input. Then you define what your input would be. You will expect the argument as query, and what that query is, the description of that query. Right? Just like this, you will define this is for one tool. This is how you are defining one tool in a standard format. You will define all those tools in this particular format, right? And what to do at what point of time, you also define. All that part is defined inside your server. You just need to focus on building on your server. Once your server is ready, you can just directly plug it your agent and start working with, irrespective of like worrying whether your agent will be compatible with or not, because you are already complying with all those standards, right? This is my model context protocol, and this is the architectural diagram of how or what my model context protocol is, right? So when your large language model request for something, let's say a request comes into your large language model, it goes to MCP client, which can be your Claude, or it can be your OpenAI agent that you have built, or it can be any of the interface that you are trying to build, right? Your large language model is wrapped around MCP client, which will act as a client in this particular scenario. And the request can go to multiple servers. You can have multiple servers available at a given point of time. And each server can have multiple tools as well, right? So let's say in this particular scenario, you have one search tool, you have one stock API, which will collect some stocks data or some insights from there. And then you have a calculator, which will do some mathematical operation and everything, right? And your agent can call depending upon what the question you have asked. One question can have something related to stocks as well as some calculation, right? So it can use tools from here and it can use tools from here. It can use all this framework and to generate the task, or to generate the response for the task that you have provided, right? So it is the capacity or the capability of your agent to how efficiently use the tool, irrespective of concerning if my tool is compatible with my agent or with my client or not, right? So this is what the whole architecture of this looks like. This can be a API call. This can be something happening in your local, or something, some processing you are doing in your local notebook or something on that part. Or you can have a API hosted and that API call will be made. That's straightforward in here. So does this make sense to you guys? Then we'll see into the use case and the code for it as well. Any doubts in here till now? Yes, no, maybe put in the chat or speak up.
And this configuration we should do at tool level, or where should we do this?
Yeah, we'll come to that. We'll
Okay,
build the tool first, then we will integrate the tool with my server, and then we will integrate the server with my client. We will see that.
okay, okay,
Just,
okay.
just allow me 5 minutes, we'll jump there. But just before we jump into the deeper nuance of how things are happening, let's just get an overview how things are flowing, how when I'm building a tool, when I'm integrating, or when I'm placing a request, how that request will be processed by my agent, how the tool will be available for the agent, how the things are happening in the back end, to get an overview of this. That's the architecture, a brief on the architecture of my model context protocol.
Okay, okay. Oh, that's the
Yeah.
reason these are called as a server, because they send the response to you,
Mhm.
to the client. Okay, okay. They are acting as a standalone servers. Something they
Yes.
provide some service for the basic on the incoming request. Okay.
Mhm.
And what are the agents here?
Your agent is sitting inside your here MCP client.
Okay.
MCP client, inside the MCP client, you will have your large language model sitting in, which is configured. which is a agent. It can be your React agent, it can be your any other agent which you have built for the use case. And this agent will have access to these servers,
Servers. Okay.
right? These server will have a number of tools, right?
Okay.
Each server can have a number of tools. So depending upon the use case, depending upon how good you have your tools configured, or how good your explanation you have provided, there won't be challenge in tool calling. Basically, once you have, let's say, two, three tools, okay, your agent can perfectly handle good. But once you have, let's say, 10 tools, individual tool, definition of individual tool matters. If let's say you have defined or you have configured a tool in one way, and then you have rest of the tool configured in another way, right? Your model will start confusing, right? The model will have the information but not consistent, right? Let's say it is similar to, let's say you have 10 people, 10 people in your, let's say, some friend circle or something. But some of your friends very good, and some of them, like, okay, I know the name, I know where he lives, and that's it. I don't know about this person much, right? So once you get a task, if you don't understand a person, if you don't understand really well what the skill of a particular person is, you might not be able to utilize the resource, right? So you need to have that understanding. You need to have that uniformity across all the tools that you have, or all the resources that you have, right? Model context protocol just standardize all these internals of the tool, how the tools is configured, how it will be available for the agent to use, to configure, and all that part, right?
And each of the server is accessed by one agents, or we have to build multiple agents for each server?
No, it is just one agent. You can have
Okay.
multiple agent, one server can be available for multiple agents as well, but here we have one agent. One agent have access to all the servers
The
and all
servers.
the tools. Depending
Okay.
upon the use case, you can build
Yes.
multiple server. Let's say you want to have, let's say, these two in one, say, like with one agent, which will have, let's say, specific task. It will search the web, or it will get the stocks data. So it is like you can have this one agent which will collect the data based on the user question, and then you can have another agent which will collect this data and call appropriate calculator tool. Calculation can be of multiple types, right? So it will call appropriate tool from the calculator server, so that this information that you have collected can be used efficiently. You can build a different agent for that as well. Or you can have this one agent which is configured such that it will collect the information as well as do all those calculation and get you the final answer. Depends completely upon how you are building the use case.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And any more doubts? Then we'll see some practical of it. Till now, we were just looking into the theory. Let's jump into and see some simple uh, use case of how of this in action, right? So in this particular scenario, I'll tell you what I have, what we can expect, or what the configuration is at the moment. Right now, my test, this yes, when I have clicked test at the moment. So these are my two server available. One is test server, the other one is SQLite server, right? In my test server, I have two tools, right? One is calculator, one is get weather, right? Inside this calculator, I have two functionality. One is adding, and one is uh, multiplying. This get weather is standard, like it will take the input and it will just return um, it's sunny. So there is no API call happening. You can configure it to have a API call as well, but it's just currently a placeholder that whatever the location name it will just return it's sunny at this location. That's it. Nothing hard and fast. So currently in this particular, so there will be three tools. One will be adding, one will be multiplying, and one will be sunny, right? So these are two different server available with me. So these are not tools, these are server. And these are two tools. One is this, second is this, and this server has one tool only, right? So we are on the similar architecture where we have one agent. This is my agent. Let's say this agent, or we can call client in this particular scenario. When we are talking about model context protocol, we call it as a client because client makes the request to the server, right? So this is my client. This is not server. You can call it server because it is connected at the backend. This is my client. Client is connected to two different servers. Each server has multiple tools, right? So this is how this configuration of my test client is. Then we have another client called as SQLite. What this SQLite will do, it is connected to one server only. It has multiple tools. One is read query. One is describe table. And when I say describe table, it will get information about what is there in my table, right? Then it will have information about get tables, where it will get names of all the tables. And at the back end, this is connected to a SQLite database, right? At the back end, it is connected to this SQLite database, and it is collecting this read query or describe table and everything. All these operations are happening on my SQLite database, right? So does this make sense? How things are configured between these two clients. One is test client and the another one is SQLite client, right? So let's run it and see how the response is gonna look like. And one more thing, at the current moment, this test had my two server, right? Or two client, two servers backend pe. Calculator and weather. We mentioned calculator and weather. First, I have suppressed this weather. So currently I have only one client. Currently the session that we are running at the moment, in this, I have only one, which is my calculator, right? I'll enable my weather as well after this, and then we'll see how the response will change for test. And it is my calculator. So what is, let's say, 2 plus 7. We will see how the tool calling is happening as well. So it gave me the response this, but it can do this 2 plus 7 anyways, right? How do we know that it actually called the tool, or what was the information going inside the tool, what my tool returned and everything? For that, I have placed in here. So message 1 was my human message, and the input was what is 2 plus 7, right? Then my agent said, okay, I need to call a tool. The name of the tool is called add, and the argument would be A is 2 and B is 7, right? Then my tool message, my tool returned the information 9. And this is what my AI framed the response for, right? So if I look this in here, my request was what is 2 plus 7? My client understood, okay, I need to call a tool. The tool is available where? In my server. In my server, there was a tool called add. Inside add, it gave the argument that, okay, A is equals to 2 and B is equals to 7. And I need to call that particular tool with these arguments. It called the tool, my tool returned a response, which was 9, right? And it returned the response, okay, 2 plus 7 is 9. So this is how the request has been processed. It was not just straightforward ki LLM did that only. It was how the request has been taken by the client and processed it with the help of the server, right? Okay, let's try with something else. Let's say, let's see if it is able to. And if in case it is able to, that means your agent is not perfectly configured. This agent, it is responding to the request, which is not using those servers or those tools, right? You need to put all those guardrails that your agent is able to answer, or your client is able to entertain the request, which are available or which can be solved through the tools only, and agent do not use it internal knowledge or internal understanding, right? Currently, I have just made a placeholder, nothing additional. Let's see if it is able to answer this. And even if it is able to answer, we'll see it didn't call any tool for the answering that particular. Okay. Additionally, it gave me that answer, but let's see which tool it called. For 2 plus 7, it gave the argument 2 plus 7 in the input, and it hallucinated here. It gave the response 9 and it got the response 0. AI response, the answer is 9, but the capital of India is New Delhi. It didn't call any tool for answering this question. What is the capital of India? It used the tool only for answering my first part of the question, what is 2 plus 9, right? Let's try another one about the weather, because we will be using the same question which we when we integrate our next tool, which is my weather tool. Is it making sense to you guys?
Yes, yes. And in case if the server is not able to give response, then LLM model itself, if it has data, it should have written, right? No,
No. So no, no,
no.
no, no. So it's like how you configure your agent. Then it comes to your agent. Inside your client, you have your agent, right? How
Right,
you
right, right.
configure your agent, whether your agent, how you are configuring your agent, that it needs to answer only using the tool, or it can use its own understanding of the
Understand? Right, right,
question
right,
that you
right.
are
Uh,
asking and return the response, right?
right, right, right.
If it is using its own understanding, you cannot 100% sure whether the response was correct or not.
Okay,
If it is coming from the tool, then you can be assured that, okay, because inside the tool, you have configured the things, right? Inside tool, you are making some API call. Inside tools, you are manually writing the script. Whatever the response from tool is coming, uh, you can be assured about the response from the tool, but not from the agent.
okay.
Because if the agent is generating from its own understanding, there might be scenarios, sorry, where it can hallucinate, and you will never know when it is hallucinating. You understand hallucinate now, right?
That word, no, no, I don't have it, but I've heard the word. If you can explain what exactly is the
Okay, we
hallucination.
have also discussed it. Maybe Shashwat or Raghav, maybe you wanna explain this to us briefly, maybe.
In one or two lines, that's enough. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is one of the word commonly
Mm-hmm.
comes when we talk about a model, because that's
Yeah.
what the model hallucinate, and then it may not give
Yes.
the right data.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Shashwat will maybe
It's like
Shashwat. Are you? Mhm.
impersonation, right? You are trying to impersonate someone else. Let's take I'm Vasu.
Mm.
I'm impersonate like Ankit and telling something.
No, 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 no.
No, no, not like that.
That's something
Uh,
else. Yeah.
that's something else. Okay.
Mm.
So hallucinate is basically it will give you none. So if it doesn't train on any data, so it will try to give some junk response, and it may not be consistent. So
Okay.
Yeah. So hallucination is something, let's say you
The
have
model is
expertise in with respect to, let's say, software development, right?
right, right,
You are
right.
expert in software development, your training of 10 year, 20 years, you have spent your good amount of time in software engineering and you have very good expertise in software engineering, right? But let's say if I ask you something about, let's say model architecture, like, or let's say machine learning, or let's say something which you have not even heard of, what you will say? Okay, my expertise do not lie in this area and I may not be able to answer, right? But
Right.
model are not trained to do that. Models, even if they don't know, and models are trained on vast amount of data, right? Even if they don't know something, they will respond you with something or the other, because they will give you the most probable answer. It may not be correct. They will just give you the most probable output. It is there based on the training the model has.
That's true. Right. Okay. Got
Whether
it.
it is correct, whether it is not correct, it's up to the user, or
Up to the
how you
user.
are consuming it, how you are validating it, right?
Right. Right.
So
Right. Got it. Got
that's what we say, a model might hallucinate at any point of time,
it.
and we might
Hallucinate.
even not know when it is hallucinating and when it is giving the correct answer,
Right. Got
right?
it. That,
So when it is coming, when the response is coming from my tool, right? So this 2 plus 9 came from my tool. I can be assured, okay, this information was coming from my tool. My tool has processed this information, and my tool has given this, so this tool message, my tool response was 9, right? So I can be confident that my tool has generated this response, and my tool can be a API call. My tool can be a my internal script that I have written to process some information. A tool can be configured a combination of different scenarios, but this is manually configured, right? You can be assured. But what to call at what point of time, that management kind of thing is done by agent. We want agent to do that management only and summarizing the information and handling the task of what tool to call at what point of time, right? And take all the information from the tools, summarize it for the user to answer the question that user has asked, right? But if you start depending upon the model's understanding of the question and generate response, then everything might be, um, incorrect sometimes. Let's say currently it gave me the capital, or it gave me the weather, or in this particular scenario, it said that, okay, for weather of Delhi, I do not have access to live weather data, right? It gave me that. Sometime in the previous scenario, it did give me response that, okay, this is the, even in here, it can give some response, right? Maybe it can say, okay, in this, like right now it is around June. So let's say in June in Delhi, it's generally it's sunny, right? So it can say, okay, it might be sunny in Delhi based on its own understanding without any external knowledge of what is happening around the world, right? But if we are having tool, we can configure. Let me just now configure my another tool, which is my weather. Just give me a moment. I'll pull it up, or let's say I'll configure it internally, and then we'll look into the code how I have done that. I'll just copy this question. So now, right now, what I just did was I enabled my multi-agent or multi-server client. Now my client has access to multiple server. One of my server is weather, one of my server is calculation wala, math server. And let's say I ask the same question, right?
And this UI is a regular HTML file or any specific UI? The UI you are showing, what is that?
No, I'm changing it in the code. I'll pull up. Don't worry, I'll pull up that. Right? It seems to be persistent issue retrieving weather information from Delhi. It seems returning. Let's see if it pulled the why it pulled New York. Let me see. I might have configured it wrong. So this is let me just pull it up. This is where I am configuring it. Right? So my server is running in here. Let me see my weather server. Okay, I need to change this. Perfect. And now I need to just re-ask this question. Uh, I need to break it and then run it because my server was already running and I need to stop my server and rerun so that not this. So once you are making changes into your server, you need to respin that, right? So this is two different ways of connecting your server. We'll jump into the code once we are done with the demo. Okay, so in this particular scenario, I had two questions. What is 2 plus 7? Which we would want a mathematics tool or mathematical server to take, right? And then we have another question, which is about weather, which we want a different server or different tool to cater this particular scenario, right? My agent smartness comes in what tool to call or what server to use at what point of time. So first it took, I need to call this tool called add. and I need to pass these argument, and then I took you call this tool called get weather with the argument as Delhi, right? It did a tool call, it returned a response as 9, and then it did another tool call for weather and it got this response. Content was this, and okay, this is another error that we just did, that we also need to pass it in the F string. You got what has happened? That's how we debug it, right? But your agent was able to understand. It got the response as 9. It got the response as it is always sunny in location, right? But it automatically, this is where you can say hallucination or you can call it a smartness for the model you can expect from the model, right? So this is what has happened. Now you understand how the tool calling is happening. Then we'll jump into the code and see how this is configured inside my code, right?
Right. And what is the right way of having one agent talking to one server? Is it recommended,
Yeah, we'll see.
are you okay?
No, you can have, depending upon how many tools, how many complex thing you want your agent to handle, it can handle.
Okay, okay,
If it is not handling, maybe then you need to jump to another agent. You need to create a separate client. It completely
okay,
depends upon your scenario,
okay,
right?
okay.
So
Okay.
let's just first see how the, let me minimize this, let maximize the code area.
But
Are you guys
Ankit,
able to see this? Yeah.
right, Ankit, but this is very realistic scenarios where you have everything ready, right? Because your server is ready and you are getting response
Mm-hmm.
for just understanding, right? For chatbot,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. But in the real time, this won't be the scenario, right? But when you're trying
Mm-hmm.
to, yeah, in those cases, what are the things we should be aware of? For example, I need to. There might be use case where I need to generate a server here where
Yes.
my client will talk to the server, get the response, and then give back to my answer, right? So
Mm-hmm.
what are the things, how we can do that one server?
Yeah, that's we'll look at like right now, because I have just opened this code so that
Okay,
we
okay,
can understand how that I have configured my client, how I have configured my server, how I have connected those tools to my server, how I have integrated all these and currently made a holistic use case, and we can just answer a question based on what is going in,
okay,
right?
okay, okay, okay,
That's
got it.
what we are going to look into right now.
Okay,
Yeah. So, uh, if you see in here, I have these two different folders called test server and SQLite server. Inside this, maybe I should rename them. I should call them a test. This is a completely different or an independent use case, which is a test use case. And then there is a SQLite use case, which is a completely different. Both of them has independent working at the moment, right? The two, because one is actually integrated with a SQLite, not just that for the demo purpose, but actually a SQLite server integrated. And the other one is for the understanding, right? So let's say we start with our tool first, right? We create our file called math server, right? Or you can name the file anything, whatever you want to, but you need to configure these tools in this format, right? You will have a tool called add, which takes two numbers and it will be configured, right? You need to register them with MCP. This is where you are creating that server. You are creating a math server, right? Whenever you run this particular file or whenever this file would be called, these two tools would be available for my client to access, right? These are two different tools inside my this server, right? This is my math server. Then we have another one, which is my weather, right? Inside my weather, I am doing a tool call, which is for get weather, which takes the location and returns it is always sunny. Inside this, you can configure API call or anything, whatever you want to, right? And then whenever you are running this file, this is how you configure. Like earlier, when we were configuring mcp.run, I was configuring this server and I was starting with transport is equal to stdio, right? Standard input operation, input output, right? When I'm configuring this, for this, I'm doing a SSE. This is something related to how my requests are placed, post and get requests are configured, right? So for this SSE, I need to run this server externally. It will be available on my local port, whatever the port that I define. So if you see in here, I had configured it, right? I had configured it and it was available at my 8000, this Python weather.py, weather server.py. It was available at my port 8000, right? And when I configured it, or when I'm giving this server is ready and running on my local port, local endpoint, right? When I'm registering this with my client, I'm passing where this information, where this server is available. So in here, if you see, I gave this command that where this particular server is available. This server is available at this location. This is a direct file which is standard input output operation being performed. And the other one was this is available at my this IP. I'm giving this as a IP. This can be some external IP as well, right? Some external API hosted, right? You can do that as well, right? And this is how you call these two servers. Inside each server, we have seen how we have configured. So inside this server, I have configured a tool which takes the location and do some processing and returns the output, right? This is how my server was configured, and this is my multi-server client. My client will be available, will have multiple server integrated, and it will take care of both of them, right? And I just configure it. I'm creating my React agent, which will have access to all the tools that are available in here, and I'm just doing a invoke. This is from my previous one only, right? Because till here, before this, it was all about my how client is configured, how server is configured, and everything. After this, once I create my React agent, it is as same as my previous one, because now my agent would have all the tools. It will have understanding of all how this server is created, how this tools is created, and everything will be available. It will be the same after that, right? So this is how we have configured our math tool and weather tool. This is how we have configured our client. For client, this is just 5, 10 different lines of code. This much. It is this easy. No much of a rocket science. It's just this much. 10 lines of code and you have things in place. Does this make sense?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
The only additional thing from the previous discussion that we had, it is this, right? You need to run that file. Either you run that in standard input output, or you run as a local host server, right? Your server, you can run it locally for testing when you are learning or you're building something. Let's say you are running it locally, but let's say you can also have it somewhere hosted outside and it is available through some IP address or some domain. You can access it from there as well. And inside that domain, inside that IP, you have another set of tools that are available for you to structure, to use, to format, and do all whatever the stuff you want to do. Right? This is for my standard to see how things are working, and it is not just this. You can also have, let's say, your graph here. I have it. You can configure your client just the way we did in the earlier one, and then you can have your rather than your React agent, you can have your graph. This is where I have built that graph, and that graph will take some input. That graph will take the input from the user. It will call the tool whatever the tool it wants to. Instead of doing that React agent, we build the graph and do the stuff. More or less, it's the similar stuff that is being handled inside, right? Does this make sense? Any doubts in here?
No.
I would really request you guys to get a hands-on, because till the times you do practice around this, uh, you'll be having a lot of confusion and lot of back and forth things inside this, right? Okay, so this was around how we are going to be, and also when you're running this, I'll also suggest you see this once. So when I'm running this, this is all the like streamlit thing that I have done. This function I have available, I'll be sharing this code. This function particularly is to just format this the way we are seeing this, right? To format this in this format so that we can see what is the input to my tool, what is the response from my tool, which tool my agent has called, what is happening inside the tool at each step. This is just for that formatting to get that visibility. We can have this visibility in our line views also, right? But I have placed it in here so that we can just directly switch and see what is happening rather than switching to line views and trying to find. And once you are running it, You need to run it in async. How many of you understand async operations?
That is running parallelly, right? Independently.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Running
Because
independently inside it, it is also doing await till the time operation is complete and all that part. Async await basically. So it is going to wait till that operation is complete, and once that operation is complete, it will proceed. So I'll get the response, right? And this is just basic configuration of my UI. Ideally, the whole thing is happening in this particular one line. I'm calling my this main is coming from my client file. This is my main function. Which configure my client, tells my client what all server are available. This is where I am configuring all my servers with my client. Inside this server, I have already defined my tools. These are my two different tools which are available with my server. I have configured my server. I have run my server, right? Just 3 lines of code and it is available for you. So implementation is not the actual challenge. Getting understanding is the key thing, right? Yeah. So you got understanding of it. Maybe then we can proceed to the SQLite ones, and that would be, I would say, more interesting because we will be seeing SQL query being built, generating the response. Yeah. How many of you wants to see that use case around SQLite?
we want to see, sir. We want to see. Yeah.
Yeah. So for SQLite, currently the data that I have integrated, it is completely a synthetic data, right? And it is about patients, customer, hospital, around that, right? So it has multiple tables. You can integrate any of your SQLite data. It's just that it needs to have some um, understanding around the names of the columns. Or if you do not have, then you might need to enhance your agent or enhance your tool so that model can actually understand what is inside your data, right? So let's say, let me ask, right? What is the total number of patients? Inside this, what is happening? We will see. Currently, it is running. Let it get the response. Okay, it got the response that we have 1163. But let's just see how this has happened inside, how the query was built, how the model knows what tools are available and everything, right? So what it did, initially the human message was, what is my total number of patients? The AI message was, okay, let me start with list tables. What all the tables that I have in my database, right? This list table takes no argument. It is just, this function just takes nothing and it will just return the list of all the tables, right? So it returned me this name, condition, name, a device. These are multiple tables that are available in my database. Then, okay, I have retrieved the list of available tables in the database. One of the table named patient, which is like likely where we can find information about the total number of patients, right? Now I will check the structure of the patients table so that to see how the query, the total number of patients. Let's proceed with that. This is the internal thought of my AI agent, right? Why I said earlier that you need to provide additional understanding about your data if your data is not like, let's say, the name of the table is something which is not intuitive enough, or the name of the column is not intuitive enough, then along with the table name, you might want to add some description of what information is there in that particular table, right? You can play around that. So it gave it called this tool called describe table, and it gave the argument as patients, right? What table you want to describe. The output of this tool was, okay, it gave me this, that there is something called CID, the name, the address. These are all the columns that are available, or the schema of that particular table that is available in my database, right? So based on this, looking at that columns in my table, it built this query. And this was, it called this tool called read query, and it passed this argument: select count star as total patient from patients table. This is the query that was built by my agent, and it called the tool called read query. Read query tool is already configured inside, which will take the query and respond with the result of that executed query. It ran this query and the result was 1163. This was my total number of patients in my database, right? Now we can get the output. So it generated the insight. So append insight is currently a placeholder in this. I already commented that out. So, but what are some of the component inside my server? I'll tell that also just after this. So it gave me the response. The total number of patient was 1163, right? So this was the how the request from the UI or request from the user has been handled by my client. Multiple tool call has happened, or multiple tool responses has come. How the model has understood what tool to call at what point of time. How this is flowing inside, right? So this is you can always enhance the performance of your model on how the tools are configured, right? Your ability of your client is or the agent is to call what model at what point of time, and how you enhance the understanding of your agent to flow a particular direction to get a particular response, right? That's based that comes on your understanding of the agent. Does this make sense to you guys? And we'll see how the code of my SQL uh, server tool is. This is my SQL server. And this is the code that I have taken that was already available. We did see in here, right? I took this code from here and just minor modification based on my use case. I did that, right? So these are all the, if I show, these are all the tools for the models in a standard format. From here, the model will know what is the input to a particular tool, what is the definition of a particular tool, what is the definition of a particular argument that a tool takes in the input. There is all the information, right? And what is the required parameter in this? We take this as well. We define all this, right? And then we call the tool. Once the tool call happens, it takes, okay, which tool was called. If the tool was list table, then it will run this query on my database and return the response. If the tool call was describe table, then it would expect that table name will also come, because that's how we have configured. If the table name doesn't come, it will return with an error that, okay, missing table name. I need table name. My agent will know, okay, the table name needs to be passed to call this particular tool, and it will, in the next iteration, it will try to fix it. So it's like uh, handling a situation. Every corner case, if you handle inside your tool, that is better, because that will give the visibility to the agent if something has gone wrong. In this particular scenario, let's say it just gave me simple number. Let's say number doesn't make sense, right? So you can just return, okay, I need something which is a table name inside my table name. Yeah, I want a dictionary where table name is the key, and then you can pass something inside that, right? So we can expect that. You have append insight, which will synthesize. So it was by default, what it was doing, it will take the request, it will break the request into multiple sub question, and for each question, it will generate some insight and put it in somewhere. And once the whole answer is completed, it will take all those insight and summarize it for the user, right? And then we have read query scenario. It will take the query, and it will, if the query does not start with select, it will raise an error. So this is where the scope of improvement is, because not all the queries start with a select statement, right? This is where we can improve upon, and it will execute the query and it will return the result. Also, if you notice, there is a standard way in which you are returning the result. It's not just randomly you are returning anything. You are returning the response in a standard format, right? You're returning a text type, and even if it is a dictionary or even if it is a list, you are returning it by converting into a string, right? And in this particular format, text content, right? And that's how you have configured, and this is where you are configuring your server, right? And then you kick your server, you start your server. Does this make sense? I have taken
Yes.
this from the SQLite server code base here. It's not that you need to remember all this. Everything is available, open source, you can use them based on your use case, but you need to have that understanding that what to use at which point of time and how to modify it for your use case. Just by looking into it, going through it, you should be able to understand, okay, what is happening. That's the whole idea. No need to remember or learn this code. Okay, does this make sense?
Yes, yes. Yep.
So I would expect by now you would have understanding of the model context protocol, how what is it and how to implement it as well. More understanding you will get once you get your hands dirty, get into it. You might encounter some error, you try to debug it, then fix it and everything. Also, I'm not sure how many of you have a production ready code or have worked on production, but just wanted to highlight this that I have created my model instance at one location. Right now, I had two different sample in here, right? One was test and other was SQLite. For both of them, for both the clients, I was using my same LLM. If I want to change it, I will change at one location and it will change everywhere. I need not to go and search for it at every location, right? So this is one of the good practice to do. So this LLM is, I have just imported it from here. If you see, I have just imported it from model instance. This is my model instance file. So if I want to change my model, I'll change it here and it will take care of rest of the stuff. It will have an impact at all the places wherever I'm using my LLM instance, right? This is how you uh, build some application which is scalable. If you configure the large language model configuration inside each file or wherever you are using it, you might end up in a big trouble once you want to change the model. You might not even be able to keep track yourself what all places you have used the model, right? So better you create all those instances at one place and use that and import it anywhere you want and then use it. Yeah. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. This needs not to be here. Shit. Okay. No worries. I'll take care of that. Anyways, does this make sense to you guys? Then we can move to the next topic for today.
And the UI, if you can tell, what is the UI? Is it regular HTML
Uh,
or
by UI, you mean this?
yeah, the response, right? How did you create that interactive, right? That is what, right? That's the submit question and response. This entire what you're
This
showing
is
here,
this is Streamlit.
Streamlit.
This is the Streamlit code, yes. So if you see the Streamlit file, this if you ignore this function because this function is doing that formatting only. Forget
Okay,
about this function. Only this much line of code. This is where I have put the header. This is the header, right?
okay,
The header is here. Then I have a this line in between. I have
right,
put
right.
this line. Then I'm doing a select box,
Okay,
which will
box.
have
Okay.
test or SQLite. This is
Mhm.
my select box, which will have text or SQLite. So no need to take too much of load on how to present Streamlit, Gradio. There are applications which you just line one line and you have it ready. No need to put too much of efforts on how you present it, how to build those connections and everything.
Okay, Streamlit.
Because if you go and show a demo of this particular MCP working in your terminal, it won't make sense to a lot of people. What is happening? What are you doing? Especially to the business users, it won't make sense. But if you show them very clean or clear UI, okay, you click this and see this will come. Background mein what is happening, you need to worry about that, not the client, right? This is just
Right.
you demo your projects. Simple. Yeah. Does this make sense?
Yes, yes, yes. Got it.
Yeah. Uh, okay. In that case, hmm. Let's move to the next topic for today. What happened to this? Hmm. That is constitutional AI. How many of you understand the term constitutional AI or have heard of around this?
Some sort of governance, right?
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Ashok, Raghav, Shashwat? Not heard. Okay. So, as Vashal correctly mentioned, it is something to do with the governance. And when we say governance, it is not same as the governance in a country or state or whatever, right? It is to do how your model is performing in terms of whether the response is ethical or unethical, whether it is whether the response is racist or not, sexist or not, whether it is harmful, whether it is dangerous, or you ask, tell me how to make a gun or how to make a bomb, right? Your model should be able to understand the what the request is, and if this request is something that can be harmful, that can be unethical, if it can be classified in some of the constitution. This is what we call constitution in here. In this particular context, the term constitution mean all these guardrails, all these rules, where if your input request is flagged in any of these categories, your model should be able to understand it, and your model should be able to inform the user, okay, I'm not able to answer this. This can be illegal, this can be unethical. You might end up in big trouble later on if you're trying to do this. Or let's say you might have come across you build let's say you are asking a model, tell me how to commit a suicide, right? In that scenario, your model should be able to your model rather, because model are basically trained to produce some response, whether it is correct or not correct, that is up to you. But your model should also understand that not in all the scenarios it should produce a response, or it should do what the user has asked. In certain scenario, it should restrict. And what are those certain scenarios are? These are my constitution which I frame. These are some rules that I frame. On those rules, if there is a flag in any of these conditions, the model should stop and model should not answer that question, or it should intimidate the user that okay, this can be harmful if you go do this kind of scenario. Or let's say in this particular scenario, if you see, can you see the screenshot that I have attached in here? Is
It
it
is very
visible?
small, no, very small. We can read with difficulty.
Mm.
If you can highlight, yeah, now
Yeah,
it's
can
better.
you?
Yeah, now it's better. Now
Yeah.
it's better.
Okay, so this is one example from the research paper that was there, and it was released a couple of years back, right? And I think it was from Anthropic only. And it was like, can you help me hack the neighbor's Wi-Fi? Obviously, anybody would ask. Even I would have tried it back in my college, right? But if this kind of information is available in like such like in a easiest possible way, you can ask a chat GPT and get a response, right? But doing these kind of activity can be illegal. So if you do not put that guardrail, so it can end up saying a response that okay, call very easy hack. You use this app and you should be able to log into your neighbor's Wi-Fi, right? But we want to put that condition that if these kind of question comes in, either user wants to hack something, then it should deny. So what how the model, or this is the part on how this was trained. This is again part of model tuning. How do you tune your model? This is part of fine tuning. Before the model is made public, they need to also fine tune it on these constitutions so that model becomes responsible. This is also part of responsible AI, where your AI or your LLM model is responsible to not produce something which is unethical, uh, um, criminal sort of activity, or racism, or sexist, or any on that part, right? So let's say initially it gave that request, it gave the answer, but then how we train it, or how the whole architecture of this model um, tuning in this particular scenario goes is, will we have that architecture in my next slide? Yeah, here it is. Yeah, so how it goes is, we take the input to the model, we give some when this is na some input and this is a red teaming prompt elicit harmful samples, right? So let's say I want to kidnap someone, tell me how to do it. Or I want to make a bomb, tell me how to do it. These kind of question are asked, or this kind of prompts are given to the model to generate the response. Let's say model generates a response, whatever the output is, it generates a response, and this response is okay, you can do this, then it can be done. Okay, there is no checks in place till now, right? Then you take the response and you pass it through a critique, right? This critique will say that whether this answer was it flag, or whether it can be flagged in any of the scenarios, what is wrong in this particular answer, why the model should not answer this question, right? You have a critique in place which will ask a question on the response the model has given, and it will comment that whatever the response has come, right? And it will take the critique, and we will tune our model based on the response that it has got. So if my critique says okay, you should not have given this answer because this can be illegal, and you can get into some criminal activity, or you might get into some trouble later on if you do these kind of scenarios, right? So you take those questions, you take those response, whatever the model response is given, and you take those comments by the critique, and you tune your model on whether the response was how the response should be like, or for these kind of scenarios how the response should be like, based on the additional understanding from the critique, right? Once it is ready, then we again take similar kind of questions, right? And we try to generate the response, right? And then we take those response, and we take the question, and we use our fine-tuned model to classify on the scale whether this particular response, whatever the response has come, what is the scale of harmness, or the on each scale of the constitutional rules that we have in place, right? So if it says that a particular question was sexist, right? So it will flag it in here, what is the score in that sexist, right? Yeah, what is the score in terms of racist remark that the question and the answer has, right? So based on that, it is again fine-tuned based on this overall exercise. So it is tuned two times, one in here and the other one is here, right? Once we have this complete everything in place, so once it was trained by giving a question and getting a critique, and then getting a question, getting a response, and asking the model to rate the response, rank the response in terms of all the constitutional rule that we have. And then we get our final model. All the models that are available out there in the market at the moment, all that I have tried, you can see that yourself as well. Even for OpenAI models, we do have that visibility as well. For others, there might be, I have not explicitly explored that part, but there is something called moderate, right? Whether your response was breaching that moderate level, what is the level of tolerance around that? And all the models after GPT 3.5 Turbo are tuned with this constitutional I framework, so that your model response is much more responsible. It is not just producing anything, right? You can try this by asking some illegal or some sort of comment with your chat GPT and see how it responds like. If you ask how I want to kill someone, it may not respond and say that it is not right to kill someone and all that, right? Because it is trained or it is tuned on this constitutional life framework, right? Each model and everything, you can build your own constitution when you are tuning your model, and it is very important while building and releasing a model, because you cannot release a model which will tell user how to make a gun, right? It will have a bigger social impact, right? And all the model of a GPT 3.5 Turbo has this constitutional sort of framework. And let's just see the conversation. This is the screenshot from there I mentioned already. Let me see if I can zoom this. Yeah. System is not performing the way I want it to.
I pasted one response I got from Gemini AI. You're able to see, right?
Mm,
In chat, in chat.
no, no, I don't see that.
1 second. No, I think I pasted wrongly. You can see now, right?
Mm, yeah,
I think
exactly. It have those, okay, you can call emergency numbers. You can have these kind of, see, this is where the responsible AI comes in. It should not um lead you in a certain scenario where you are harming or you are breaching some of those constitutional framework. It should navigate you, it should guide you to a certain other, which is much more acceptable, which is much more responsible response, right? It's similar to if you ask someone, okay, I want to kill someone, like kill the other person or kill my neighbor or something on that part, just for example. Huh? And so other person will might need to like say, okay, calm down, tell me what has happened. We might look for some other option. If you do, what could be the repercussion? The other person tries to understand and tries to help you, not always leading you to, okay, let's do this, right? So this is what the responsible response we expect from the a large language model, right? So in here, we have this, I want to hack my neighbor's Wi-Fi. It said, okay, go ahead, we can do this and we will be able to get this, right? But not always we want to have this. And then my critic request was identify specific ways in which the assistant last response is harmful, unethical, racist, sexist, toxic, dangerous, or illegal, right? This is the critique request that is going on, right? And then my critique, the response to this particular answer was the assistant last response is harmful because hacking someone else's Wi-Fi is invasion of their privacy and is possibly illegal, right? So once then I take this question, I take this response, and I take this critique request, and then help my model or tune my model to understand why this kind of question should not be answered or what kind of response should come for these kind of questions, right? It is again, you are fine tuning your model, and this happens on at a large scale. Like you do not have like 5, 10, 15 questions, you have n number of questions when you are tuning this, right? And then you revise the request. Please rewrite the assistant's response to remove all harmful, unethical, this from the content. And then this is my revised answer. Hacking into neighbor's Wi-Fi is it might land you in trouble and land you in legal trouble. Then my final, this is what my tuning and fine tuning in critic request and everything was done. This is my final output. Now this is what is available for the user. That once you ask this kind of question, it will give you these kind of responses that you might not want to do this. This might have bigger repercussions. You might get into some illegal problems and all that, right? So this is what my constitutional AI framework is. Does this make sense? This is important when you are building any language model which is customer facing, which is much more responsible, which is you are building that model, you are fine tuning that model, right? This becomes an important framework in there. And all the models that are out there in the market at the moment does comply to this. Not all, but majority of them. I cannot assure of all the models. And when I say that I have seen, let me see if I can get to show you something on the score part. Just give me a moment. Let me. Any question till then? I'm just trying to see if we can get this for OpenAI model. Just I'm almost done. Completion token. No, it is not giving that in here at the moment. No, what I had seen in many scenarios was whenever you are placing this request LLM dot invoke, it gives the score on different matrices, right? It is explicitly available in Google API responses, but I don't see this right now in my OpenAI response. Maybe you can try it out yourself. Maybe in some model you will be able to see those scores explicitly. And when I say explicitly, I'm referring to whenever the response comes in, you will see that okay, what was the score in terms of racism? What was the score in terms of illegal activity or crime or abusive, whether it was abusive or not abusive, or something on that line. You will get those scores as well. Try with Gemini, you should be able to get it there, right? Okay. Does this make sense to you? Constitutional AI framework, how this happens?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And you should also be able to appreciate now why it is important. It is not just that we are doing some exercise. It is a very important exercise when you are releasing a model or building a model. Then we have additional thing called caching mechanism. How many understand the caching? What is caching? You cache some of the information that is going again and again multiple times so that you can reduce the network load. You cache some of the information and it is a faster experience, right?
Right. We
Yeah.
use Redis cache, right? Caffeine
Hmm.
Redis,
Hmm.
so that if the client every time it won't go to the server for the response. If the response is already
Exactly.
straight, it will take the response from the in local and then give it to so that your response will be faster.
Exactly. Exactly. So when the user input comes in, let's say your question was, what is the total number of patients, let's say, right? And user is asking this question again and again. So what you do, or maybe reword this same question. Let's say, tell me total number of patient. What is total number of patient? This asking the same thing but reworded, right? So what you do, rather than generating your query, building your complete pipeline, hitting your server, running a query, getting the response and all that part, if you know that everything in the backend stays the same, your data remains the same, your data has not updated, or even if your data has updated, let's say, then what you do, you do not build the query. You take the question, you store the question and the query in your cache, right? And based on the user question, whatever the user question was there, you try to find it whether this question was available in your cache or not. If the question is available in your cache, either you return the response from the cache directly, or you reuse the information that is available in your cache to continue the response. So let's say you ask a question, tell me about how to make pasta, right? This is, let's say, just a example scenario. You ask this question, how to make a pasta, and you have, let's say, 1000 tokens generated. You have a big paragraph on each step, how to do it, how not to do it, what is the recipe, what are the ingredients, what are the step-by-step procedure, and all that information, right? So next time when the user asks the same question, how can I make the pasta, you first check it through your database or your cache database that you have in place. For the user query, you first check it into your cache, whether you have some question in your cache already available that can be used as a source and you can answer that question, right? Changing the recipe of making a pasta won't change, right? It is same, maybe a different location it can change a bit, but it would remain more or less same, right? So what do you do? Rather than going through your LLM response and generating all this using a number of tokens, sending a request to the LLM, you are making an API call or you are hitting the model. You are generating 100 tokens in the input, you are generating 500 tokens, 5000 tokens in the output, right? You are consuming those 5000 tokens, right? You are saving that token so that you can use the information that is available with you already in your cache, right? And you can use it to produce a response for the user. It is much more faster. It would reduce the latency because you are just checking in your cache and producing a response to the user. It is going to improve your scalable, like your use case would be much more scalable because you are not hitting the same request a number of times. If you have the information, you use it, right? And you can have consistent results also. This is also one thing. Let's say the user question was, what is the total number of patients, right? In this scenario, let's say I don't want to store the result, but I want to store the query. What was the query for this particular scenario? When the user asks this question, I'll take this query, hit my database, execute the query, take the answer, and show it to the user, right? So rather than building this building query was the challenge for me, right? It was the task. If it is once done, I'll store it. And if the question structure is changed, something is changed, I'll take care of that. I need to make sure that whatever the input question is coming and what are the different variation of this question available with me in my cache, how I am able to match those scenarios. That is up to how clean you want to do, what are some of the similarity, how close similarity you want to take up in that particular scenario. And once you have it, you just take the query from your DB. You are not taking the complete response, just the query, executing it against your database and just generating the results, right? This can be much more faster. This can be much more scalable and much more consistent, right? Total number of patient is a very straightforward query, right? There might be very less scenario of inconsistent query getting generated when you try again and again. But let's say you have five, six different matrices available in your same question, right? And there are chances that your model might miss on certain scenario when you're generating that question. Then you have that particular question and the query in your cache, right? And whenever user asks that question, you use the information that is available in your cache to generate the final response for the user, rather than generating the whole response again and again and again, right? That's where caching mechanism is helpful. So in the diagram itself, when you have a query, rather than making a direct call, we have something called cache in between. We search it against the cache. If we found it, then we give the response directly from the cache. And it is not just taking the cache and showing it the user. It can be different formats also. Like we take the query, execute it, and show the response, right? It can be done at multiple stages, not just input and output. And if it is not available in cache, then you have your default pipeline in place, which is your fallback option, and the pipeline will run to give you the response, right? Does this make sense to you guys? And do you understand how important is the caching mechanism? How do you cache and all that part?
Yes, we are aware of that.
Yeah. Okay. Any doubts in here? Okay. Yeah. That was the agenda for that I have decided for today's session. We can go for the other one. Let me see if we can see that, which is a low code platform, right? Don't think we'll be able to finish it. So I'll just give you a brief on how I have built this, and we'll discuss this in detail in our next session. Okay, you can put up any doubts if you have.
What is Langflow? Is also one model or
It's a low code platform.
low code? Okay.
Yeah. So if you see, do you, is it something that makes sense to you? This is the RAG architecture that we have built. Complete RAG. This is where the user document comes in. Chunks are created in here. Embeddings are available in here. Once the embedding is created, I am putting here it in my vector store. User question comes in, it goes in my vector store. Similar document comes up. It goes in here to my parser to extract all those document. It is formatted enough. I create this prompt here, hit my LLM and get my response. This is my not a single line of code. Everything is done just by dragging and dropping and connecting and all that.
And this generates the code automatically at the backend for you.
Yes, at the backend, if you see, let's say if we see the code for ChromaDB, here is the code for this.
Oh.
Yeah. If you want to edit something in here, you can edit and save. You will have access to the code as well. You want to deploy it, you want to publish it, you can just have API access and take it further. Does this make sense? This is like automation or something. We have another called N8N, which is further, I would say, taking it to next level where you have access to multiple input. Let's say you are triggering something. Let's say whenever a mail comes in, you want to do some sort of request, then you want to return a response mail, right? Whatever the
NA10, no?
response.
What is
N8N.
NA? NA10.
N8N. Yeah,
NA10. Okay.
this is it. So just like this, you have input, and we can build this RAG in there as well. It's not that we cannot build. It's just I think N8N has much more tools to play with. Here, if you
And
see,
okay. And these are all used to develop GenAI agents or complex
GenAI
agent.
use cases, yes, complex agents. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Uh, in the next session, we'll be also seeing something called as AutoGen. Have you heard of AutoGen? This is by Microsoft.
No.
Okay, so it is to
I heard
build
the
the
name.
agent.
Uh,
Yeah.
they have this Copilot, right? Microsoft Copilot is there.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's one more, right? Which will do a lot of things on your Windows box,
Mm. Yes.
which will
So it's
summarize
like
summarization.
low code only. This is also low code only, where it can give you a UI. You can run it locally, generate all these agents. You can have inside your agent what prompts do you want, what all connections do you want, how do you want your agent to behave, what all tools you can have in there. You can build all that just by dragging and dropping and get it ready. There is also something similar called Crew AI. This is also similar where you get all these agents ready to use. And yeah, this deep learning AI. What I would also suggest you is this deep learning AI. I'll share the link in the chat. There are some small, like these courses are very small. It's not 5 or 10 hours of courses, maybe half an hour, 1 hour of courses, small lecture videos around different concepts of AI, right?
Oh,
Gen AI to everyone, machine learning specialization, the prompting, and this is from expert. Uh, this guy here, this is one of the
okay.
renowned name in the AI industry, Andrew. Right? This is one of the professor, right? And there are multiple courses. You can explore courses. You have different type of courses in here.
These are
RLHF.
free or the chargeable?
These
They
are
charge
free, all
free. Okay.
free. Yes.
See
Short
here,
courses.
the
Hmm.
confusion is one side we speak about GenA creation. There's the other side, automatic low code coming up, and it's a little bit confused, right? Where to focus, right? Whether to develop. Nowadays, there is no need to go and develop code, right? Now you are showing so many NA tent auto
Yes.
generate within minutes, right?
Yes.
That's a little
Even
bit confusion.
even
Yeah.
I have the same confusion. There are so
Uh,
many advancement coming up. So how to keep track of everything and how to know where to use what?
No. So the good thing is you should know what is coming up,
Okay,
right?
okay,
You should be able to get, let's say, you start building a use case, and you should be able to understand where the actual challenge in that use case will lie. Whether you build it through your autonomous agents or autonomous low code platform that are coming up, whether you build it through that or you do the code yourself, right? Even if, let's say, you don't know how to code, but you are building it from the low code platform and you encounter an error, right? It is not going through. You will be sitting like, what do I do now? Because this is what I have experienced. The lang flow, that when I started for the first time, I was sitting blank. I don't know. I didn't even knew that I can edit the code for this inside, right? I was just looking into this. Okay, this is not going. Why it is not going? I'm clueless why it is not going further. Then I get inside. I saw the code. Okay, what is happening? I found, okay, this is where it is failing. And then I understood. Okay, I can edit the code also. Then I edited the code and try running, and it ran successfully, right? So it's not just that if you go with low code no code platform you cannot build. You can build it, but if in case the low code platform is throwing some error, right? You should not be able to in the situation that you are not able to understand what is happening inside that particular tool, and how you can debug that particular scenario, right? You should be knowing how things are being done internally, and then you can use low code no code platform. There is no harm in that. But initially, what I would suggest is do some hands-on, understand how you will do if you are doing that code part. And then you move to the low code part, and then you see, okay, how they have done it. And if there is some error in the way they have implemented, right? Then you can also debug it if in case if it fails sometimes. Does it make sense?
great, right. Yeah, yeah. And Ankit, for this we need to know Python very well, right? To some extent, or some advanced
Mm,
and something. So
Um, I won't say very advanced,
to
but
some
yes,
extent,
yes, you should be handy with the Python, because you will be building those functions, you will be passing those arguments.
yeah,
You might want to also build classes, you might want to also work on the OOPS concepts, how you pass, how you use. You will need that, but I won't say very technical or very much specialized you need to be before starting into this. No, even if you have a basic of Python, building function, passing arguments, collecting response, you use that is good enough to start with. Later on,
great,
once you get handy, you build more use cases, you automatically will be able to handle these scenarios.
right, okay.
Yeah.
And any good site you recommend for Python, which is very close to this AML, GenAI, and all? Because we have so many Python courses, right? Like W3 schools and all. But anything that is very close to what is needed for developing this bots or any use cases, as per your
Mm,
experience.
No, what I would suggest is so this deeplearning.ai, the link that I have also shared.
Okay.
Um, you try to like one or this or any other let's say YouTube video you are seeing building any use case, or you are trying it yourself, right? Don't just rely on the information that is available before you, or even if you are reading an article. Let's say you are building a use case where you want to use a, let's say, vector DB, right? You go to the documentation of it and you see how this is implemented. Don't just see how it is implemented. Maybe first what you do, just copy paste and try to run it in your notebook as it is. Change nothing, just take it and run as it is in your notebook, right? Once you are able to achieve that, then okay, now tell me what use case I want to build on this. I may not want to use it exactly the same. I want to have some modification in that, right? Then see what all modification I can do. Explore around that. You will get into some error. Try to debug that. Sometime you might even need to go inside the library to understand what was happening there, what all argument it takes. And maybe VS Code is one. I personally use VS Code because I can navigate that back and forth and everything. In my organization, we use this Jupyter Hub VM. We have hosted a VM, but I connect it through my SSH to my VS Code only, because there here I get the liberty to just click on that function and go inside that function and see how this is flowing. Even if it is inside a library, I can go inside that library and see what the flow is like inside, and how can where it is breaking, how it is breaking, and all that part.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, all of it is Python, so you should be able to understand what is happening. It's just it is written a little bit much more structured, I would say. Not everybody write that structured code, but you should be able to understand going back and forth.
Sure.
Yeah.
പഠിക്കട്ടെ അവനും പഠിക്കട്ടെ.
Sorry, Ashok, did you say something? Okay, I'm not sure if you asked something or not. Yeah. So if you have any more doubts, we can take it up. Else we can call it a day.
Ankit, you know anything about Tachyon? Have you used Tachyon platform?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tomorrow also classes same time or evening?
Tomorrow, I'll check. I'm not sure. It should be around evening, probably, but you will be notified. Don't worry about that. Okay. Are we cool?
Can you share the code, the link?
Yes, I will share. I'll just upload it on the GitHub. You do have the access to the GitHub, right? You have
Yes, yes, I
the
have that. Class two, I checked it. Yeah, yeah, the same one only,
uh,
right? It will be
yeah,
class three.
I'll upload it in the same GitHub repo, week 4.
Week four. Okay, week four.
Yeah,
Okay, okay.
it will be in the week 4. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, fine.
Yeah, I'll upload it in a little while. You should be able to access, and just the only request that I would have, get start with the hands-on. Because once you start with the hands-on, trust me, you will face a lot of error debugging, and you will be doing a lot of back and forth, and that's where you will be learning. This is what I have learned in past 2 years, which I am able to deliver right now in half an hour.
That's true. Right, right, right.
Let's, yeah, just
Yeah. It
get
takes some time.
started.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay then, guys. Have a good one. Happy
Sure.
weekend and happy
Happy.
learning. Yeah.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye.